So I will share a picture. Okay, just go through the picture and then I will ask a question. Is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just go through the picture. I will give 2 seconds. Let me know when you're finished, okay? Finish? Okay, fine. So, how many objects did you remember? How many objects are there in the picture? Did you count? Why? Raina, did you count? No. So, try to list some objects in that picture. Meghna. We'll start with Meghna.
Chair,
Chair.
pencil,
Hmm.
piece of cake,
Hmm.
aeroplane,
Then.
kite,
Hmm.
apple,
Fine.
pencil,
Hmm.
house,
Okay.
dog,
Hmm.
plant.
Plant is there, Raina?
Yes.
Then.
Guitar,
Hmm.
um, lock,
Hmm. Fine.
train.
Sana, did you remember anything else from this?
Huh? I remember some
Ah. Tell. Tell
apple,
other than this. Tell other than Meghna's. Meghna remember 10.
ice cream,
Hmm. Reina. Anything else?
Lock,
Hmm.
butterfly,
Butterflies.
um,
Fine. So almost we recall 12 numbers. Okay. In that picture, there is 19 objects, but we can't recall all the things. If you do these kinds of activities regularly, you can improve your cognitive skills. Your thinking, your memory, your attention, all these are improving. So try to do these kind of activities. It's help you to improve your memory. Okay. So you forgot to tell some objects. Why is it so? It is because of we have some cognitive difficulties. It's a common procedure. Sometimes we forget about phone numbers, someone's name, someone's birthdays. That is because of cognitive difficulties. Okay. So what is cognition, Reina? What is cognition?
to know or recognize.
To know or recognize. Making a cognitive development. What is cognitive development?
It is a child how they know or how they figure out how explore the world.
Okay. So we are going to learn a theory of cognitive development. The theory is by the Jean Piaget. His Jean Piaget. You can see the picture, right? He is Jean Piaget who developed the cognitive development theory. So the cognitive development theory is by whose theory is that? Jean Piaget. Okay. The theory by Jean Piaget. He's one of the most influential researchers in the area of developmental psychology. Okay. He's the most influential researcher in the field of developmental psychology in 20th century. Which century are we in now?
21st.
21st. So he is the most influential researchers in 20th century. In 20th century. Most influential researchers in 20th century. Then, in this theory, he observed his own three children. He has three children, okay. So, he observed his own three children, and these children are of different age. So, he can easily observe how their thinking patterns develop in different ages, okay. So, he observed his own three children. He observed his own three children, and then he find out some differences in their cognition, how they think. Their thinking is different according to their ages. So he observed these differences, and this theory is in 1936. So the theory of cognitive development by Jean Piaget is in 1936. In his, he says that how a child construct a mental model of the world, how he think about the world is in the cognitive development. He explains about how a child thinks about the world, that is cognitive development. He explains about that in the cognitive development theory. And he says that, I told you earlier, intelligence or the cognition is not a fixed trait. Okay, intelligence or our cognition is not a fixed trait. So this cognition is not we developed by birth. We continue to develop our thinking skills and cognitive skills from infancy to early childhood and then to adolescence, and it continues throughout our life. Okay, our thinking pattern continues throughout our life. So the Jean Piaget disagreed. The intelligence was a fixed trait. So Jean Piaget developed the cognitive development theory in 1936, and he disagreed that intelligence is not a fixed trait. And he observed his own three children to examine how their thought process changed with age. So the Jean Piaget observed the three children to examine how their thought process changed with age. Is it clear? He observed his own three children and he says that the intelligence is not fixed. And he was the most influential researcher in 20th century in the area of developmental psychology. So then he says that this cognitive development or the thinking pattern is a process which occurs due to our biological maturation, that occur due to biological maturation and interaction with the environment. What all are our environments, Sana? Our environment. We learned in the last class.
Surroundings,
Like
school,
school,
family,
family,
school,
school, family, then
uh, friends,
peer groups. List some
then
other names for peers or friends, Meghna. Other names for.
In peers or
There is some patterns in our friendship, right? The three names.
some
Ah, good. Chums. Then.
gangs,
Hmm? Gang.
gangs,
One more. Raina, help. Clique. Very good. Okay. So we learned about the cognitive development, cognition, and how the Jean Piaget explained the cognitive development in his theory. Okay. So did you learn it in psychology? So it will be easy, right? So there are certain concepts in this cognitive development. He explains certain terms in this theory, which are they? Schema, assimilation, and accommodation. Which are they? Schema, assimilation, and accommodation. Did you heard it before? Okay, fine. So, schema, assimilation, and accommodation. These are the three important concepts that the Jean Piaget explains in cognitive development theory, in his theory. Okay. So, first is schema. What do you mean by schema? Schema is an internal representation of the world. How we represent the world internally. That is called as schema. Schema means how we represent the world internally. Just write down schema is an internal representation of the world. How we represent our world internally. That is called as schema. I will give an example that my schema for Christmas is Christmas tree, gifts, Santa Claus, winter, and all. But someone has entirely different schema, right? Christianity, church, Jesus Christ, and all, right? So that is called a schema. Is it clear now? That is my internal representation of my world. Okay. Sana, can you give another example for schema? Your internal I will give an example. Your internal representation of a teacher or a school.
About studying,
Studying,
then learning,
learning. So according to Sana, her schema for school is academics, right? But someone else have entirely different schema, right? Extracurricular activities, they can participate in dance. Okay, so it is a schema, which means the internal representation of the world. Is it clear now? Okay. Then Meghna, give another example for schema.
The festivals,
Festivals. So what
most of
comes to your mind?
like food and all puja, but it's sometimes it's entirely different for another person.
Like?
Like a dance,
A
celebration.
festival mode, right? Okay, fine. So the next is assimilation. So we have some schemas in our mind, that is internal representation of the world. In assimilation, we are not going to change that representation, or we are not going to change our schema. No change in schema. The existing schema is there. Okay, if a child sees a new situation or a new object, the child has some internal representation or the schema in mind. So the internal representation is not changed. So when the internal representation is not changed, it is called as assimilation. And when your internal representation is changed or altered and a new schema is developed, it is called as accommodation. I will give an example so it will be more clear. Okay. First you write the definition. Assimilation is an internal representation of the world. Schema is an internal representation of the world. And assimilation is using the existing schema to deal with a new situation. Assimilation means using an existing schema to deal with a new situation. That is assimilation. So schema is our internal representation and assimilation means our internal representation of the world is not changed when we see a new object and all. So the last one is accommodation. Accommodation means our schema is changed. Here no change, but here there is change in your schema and a new schema is developed. Reina, feel sleepy? Okay, fine. So is it clear? Reina, read. What is schema, assimilation, and accommodation? Read the definition.
Schema is an internal representation of the world.
Good.
Assimilation is using an existing
Schema.
schema to deal with a new object or situation. Accommodation is altered a new schema may be developed.
Which means assimilation, our internal representation is not changed. The schema will be same. But in the case of accommodation, our internal representation is changed. And a new schema or a internal representation, a new representation is formed. I'll give an example. Okay. In the case of a 2-year-old child, he sees a four-legged animal for the first time. Okay, this is a situation. A 2-year-old child sees a 4-legged animal for the first time. So according to him, his existing schema is that all 4-legged animals are dog because he has a pet as a dog. Is it clear? A 2-year-old child sees a 4-legged animal for the first time, but in his house he has a pet that is a dog with 4 legs. So his existing schema is that all 4-legged animals are dogs. Okay, so then he see a different colored dog in a surrounding, then he called it as a dog. That is assimilation. His existing schema is not changed. His existing schema is that all 4-legged animals are dog, right? So his schema is not changed. But in the case of accommodation, his existing schema is what? Sana, his existing schema is
dog,
no. The existing schema of a 2-year-old child is he has a pet in his house, right? So all 4-legged animals are dog. According to him, he thought that all 4-legged animals are dog. So here he sees another color dog, he call it as a dog. His schema is not changed. That is called as assimilation. His schema is not changed. Is it clear? Okay, so in the case of accommodation, he sees a cat, but his existing schema is all 4-legged animals are dog. Then he point out the cat as a dog. Then the mother or the father explains that it is not a dog, it is a cat, right? So his existing schema is changed that all 4-legged animals are not dog. Is it clear now? So accommodate, is it clear or I need to repeat, Reina? Is it clear or not?
Can you repeat once more, ma'am?
Okay, fine. So what is schema? Schema means our internal representation of the world. I give an example that for Christmas, my schema is gifts, Santa Claus and all, but someone else have another schema, that is Christianity and all. Okay, that is called a schema. Everyone's schema is different. For a 2-year-old child, the schema is about animals, birds, and all, right? He has not much environmental task. He doesn't explore too much with environment as us. So his schema is mainly related to animals and all. So for an example, in the case of assimilation, there are two concepts. One is assimilation and one is accommodation. Assimilation means our schema is just remains the same. There is no change in our schema. Our schema remains same, that is called as assimilation. But when we consider accommodation, the schema of an individual is entirely changed and a new schema is formed. New representation is formed. Okay, the definition is clear, Reina? Okay. Then, in the case of a 2-year-old child, it may be a girl or a boy, he sees a dog for a first time. So, what may be his schema, Reina? He sees a dog for the first time, but he has a pet in his house, that is a dog. So, what is his existing schema? He thought that
It was a dog.
all 4-legged animals are dog. Then he sees a dog, he call it as a dog, another color dog. His existing schema remains the same. Okay, then in another example, he sees a 4-legged animal, but that is a cat, not a dog. So first the existing schema is a 4-legged animal is a dog for a child. In the case of accommodation, I repeat, in the case of accommodation, the 4-legged animal is a dog. That is the existing schema of a child. Okay, so here he sees a cat with 4 legs. He point out that it is a dog. Then our parents or friends explain that it is not a dog, it is a cat. Then he changed his internal representation of 4-legged animals into all 4-legged animals are not dog. The 4-legged animals can be cat, dog and all. Okay, so the child's internal representation is changes from all 4-legged animals are dog into all 4-legged animals are not dog. Is it clear? Sana, is it confusing? No. Reina, is it clear now? Okay. Meghna, is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, what is cognition, Sana?
To know or to recognize.
It's a which word? It is from
Latin word.
Latin word. And cognition that involves all the mental activities like processing, understanding, communicating, and all. Okay. Then, what about cognitive development, Reina?
Understanding or gaining attention through and like understanding, gaining
Meghna,
by.
try. Give a correct definition for cognitive development.
Child's perception of the world, like figuring out, exploring the world.
What is Reina? Figuring out things, exploring, and thinking. These are the cognition. So, how a child develops to think, that is called as cognitive development. And this cognitive development take place in a gradually. Just like a self development from infancy, our cognitive development is developed from infancy to, and it continues throughout our lifespan. Okay. Then what are the key concepts according to Jean Piaget? Three concepts, Meghna.
He was influenced in development psychology,
No, no, no.
and
What are the three key concepts of Jean Piaget in his theory? Schema,
assimilation,
assimilation,
accommodation.
accommodation. What is schema?
Schema is the view of internal world. I
It is an
mean,
internal representation of the world. Okay. Sana, what is assimilation?
Using a schema to deal with a new situation.
Which means the schema is not changed. Okay. The
Exactly.
representation remains the same. And what about accommodation, Reina?
The schema is newly like developed.
Yeah. New schema is developed and our old schema is changed. That is called as accommodation. Okay, fine. Let's wind up. Let's meet on the next class. Okay. Bye.